Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our session on microfinance and carbon credit markets. Just a few words about SIFTA, the sponsor of this session. SIFTA stands for Social Inclusive Finance Technical Assistance. It's a European Commission program to support social finance and microfinance. It is managed by the European Investment Bank, implemented by a consortium of three partners: the Frankfurt School of Finance and Management, Microfinance Center, and which I represent, and also the European Microfinance Network. It's a very important program for all of the providers of social finance. You can get free of charge technical assistance of any aspects of your operations. You can also participate in the in study visit, peer-to-peer, all kind of exchange programs. So it's a very valuable opportunity to all of you who have not participated in this program yet. You can very easily sign up for it by writing to European Investment Bank, and they will confirm your participation and will assign one of the managing institutions to work with you. But moving now to what is really our interest today, we have exactly 1 hour to cover what is a very exciting, but also rather complex, or maybe not that complex area, and that is making green transition finally viable for agriculture. And obviously moving from conventional farming to sustainable regenerative agriculture requires a certain, quite significant, we'll hear about that today, upfront effort, capital, new equipment, seeds, training, etc., things like that. So it's a rather high risk, low cash period for the farmer. And today we are here to ask whether the emerging carbon credit market can provide the long-term revenue for farmers, and actually, can microfinance provide the essential capital for the transition gap? And also, maybe if there is time, we can also discuss if there is any other role for microfinance in facilitating carbon credit markets in agriculture, especially for small farmers. I'm Grzegorz Galusek from the MFC, and I'm very privileged to guide this discussion with three fantastic experts, bringing different perspectives. So please welcome Laurentium Asimionesei, who is the founder of Amazak.
Hi, hello everybody.
Welcome.
Glad to be here with you all.
Super. Amazak is a leading farming community and agribusiness consultancy company based in Bucharest, Romania. Those who attended the MFC conference in Tbilisi also noticed that Laurentiu is a very active and extremely passionate promoter for regenerative and conservative agriculture, helping farmers adapt and face the climate change. So welcome, Laurentiu, once again. Then we have Mihai Cremeneanu, who is agronomist and farm manager with over 3 years of experience leading large-scale agricultural operations. And Mihai, I can already tell you, is also very passionate about sustainable and regenerative agriculture, and about integrating new technologies, digital tools to optimize the farm process and improve efficiency. And finally, we also have with us today Jan-Peter Leschen, who is senior researcher at Wageningen University and Research, with over a decade of experience in soil science and regional scale modeling of land use and greenhouse gas emissions in agriculture. He developed the Mitera model to assess the effects of farming practices on carbon stocks and nutrient losses, providing the critical scientific data needed to de-risk climate finance. But before we dive into the mechanics of the carbon market and regenerative agriculture, let's maybe launch our first quick poll. So I would like my colleagues to launch the poll where we are asking what percentage you think of global annual greenhouse gas emissions is attributed to the entire agri-food system, including farming, processing, and land use change. So please answer one of the options. The answers: less than 10%, 15%, 15 to 25, and over 25%. Okay, we need more. Please add your answers. Okay, so it seems that there is a certain balance between B and C and A as well. Maybe we can take a few more seconds to allow for more answers. Okay, so it seems that the majority of people think that it's B, between 10 and 15. So we can now end the poll, and maybe this is a just good excuse to turn to Laurentio. Can you maybe comment on the result, but also walk us through what regenerative agriculture, sustainable agriculture is, and also give us a few hints about this to some people mysterious carbon credits market. How does it work? Laurentio.
Good. Okay. So hello, everybody. Once again, I'm Laurențiu Asimianese. I'm coming from Romania. We've been dealing with the regenerative and conservative agriculture practices for a while now. I have prepared a presentation for all of you, and
Very good.
I hope
It's
that
coming. It's coming.
Okay. Good. I hope that we will
It's
be
there.
able.
It's already there.
Great. I hope that we will be able to run through it. So feel free, guys, to ask us any questions whenever you consider this appropriate. I will also address the poll that the colleagues from MFC had prepared. But before that, let us start from the very beginning. Yes, we are talking about this carbon world, okay? And let us make a few assumptions. I'm going to go with you through a little bit of chemistry, not trying to be too very, too very scholar from this point of view. So first of all, if we talk about carbon exists in two types of forms. Okay, we are talking about the organic carbon, the one that is within the soil. Yeah, that's called humus, the organic matter within the soil. And we are talking about the anorganic type of carbon, that is the carbon dioxide, for instance, on the different type of carbonates that exist throughout the world. Now, in the soil, carbon is the 14th, 1/4 most important ranked element within the soil. It also, if we are referring at in our universe, for instance, carbon is the 4th most important or most present type of chemical element present within the whole universe, and is the second in our body. Yeah, after oxygen, carbon is the second one. Now, also, if we talk about carbon, we should take into account this idea of the carbon footprint, a thing that we are going to talk about today, later on in the presentation. Yeah. So the carbon footprint, what does it mean? It means the total, let's say, a sum of different type of greenhouse gases, not necessarily the carbon dioxide, but this also includes like gases like methane, for instance, or gases like different type like the nitrogen peroxide, or several types of gases that are emitted in the atmosphere. So keep in mind this fact that the carbon footprint, even though it's called like this, it doesn't necessarily address carbon only, okay? Also, another topic here, what do we say about this carbon footprint? If we have to measure it, we should start measuring it in tons, okay? So this is what we are referring about it at. Now, about this carbon footprint, I'm sure that some of you in this meeting already know this. I'm going to talk about this GHG comes from greenhouse gases protocol. That's the protocol that specifies that the total emissions for an entity. Now take everybody in this meeting can think about their own family, okay? You have three different types of emissions of greenhouse gases emissions in your own family. The first is the direct ones. So you're driving by car, back to work or to work, your consumption, you're emitting some greenhouse gases. That is the scope 1 type of emission. The scope 2 comes from electricity, yeah? The necessary the gases that are emitted in the atmosphere and that were necessary to create the energy that you're consuming in your own house, they are referring to scope 2. And scope 3 refers to almost everything. Think about the fact that you're going to a supermarket and you're buying a tomato. That tomato was brought there by a specific car, again, emitting. The tomato, in order to be grown, was some farmers over there heated up their own area, and for this they were consuming a lot of energy, and this also adds to everything. So everything that you're having around you, it comprises of scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. It's the same with the farms too, yeah? Now, if we go further on, why are we here, yeah? Why do we talk about the agriculture, okay? What you're having right now in front of you, you're having a rapeseed or a canola type of crop. And in order to see that we are talking about sustainable agriculture or carbon agriculture, okay? You can see that within the crops of the green crops, you can see that straws, yes? Actually, those straws were left there, and the canola, in order to be cropped like this, it was seeded directly in the crop. Now, coming back, first, how does a plant sequestrate carbon? Okay, the plant, through its natural photosynthesis process, it captures the carbon dioxide or the anorganic type of carbon from within the atmosphere, and through the plant itself, it conducts that type of anorganic carbon, and through its roots, it actually captures it inside the soil, transforming it from an anorganic type of carbon to the organic type of carbon. So actually, during daytime, through this natural process of photosynthesis, plants, trees, whatever type of green plant, including trees, they are capturing the carbon from the atmosphere, and they are transposing it in the soil. Okay. Second, now there's your answer. Yeah, the poll that Gregor asked you to complete here. Agriculture itself is not nature. Farmers, they work with nature, and they transform nature. Agriculture itself, it's an industry. Agriculture is responsible for almost 1/3 of the total greenhouse gas emissions. Here we have to take into account the whole thing. Yeah, for a product to be on your own plate, 1/3 of the total greenhouse gases throughout the world is related to the agriculture, and almost 11% of the total greenhouse gases that are emitted in the atmosphere are directly linked to farming activities only. Okay, so this is the answer. And the third point that everybody should take into account is the fact that agriculture. Why are we talking about carbon agriculture? Agriculture is a regulated domain. This means that farmers that are residing in both the European member countries and also the neighboring countries like Georgia, for instance, in Tbilisi, as you mentioned, yes, or like the Republic of Moldova, or like, I don't know, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kosovo, they all have to, I mean, they are looking at what the European Union is doing, and they all have to comply with certain regulations. For instance, farmers in Romania, in order to get access to subsidies, they have to be compliant or to respect several requirements coming from the local authorities. These requirements are taking into account some of the measures that we are going to, or some of the types of agriculture that we are going to talk about today. Okay, and for sure in this regard, I'm expecting Mihai to talk about this. Being a farmer, he will later develop on this topic too. Now, being a farmer, it isn't always like a happy thing, because due to the climate change, unfortunately, you have to face a lot of challenges nowadays. It doesn't rain as it used to be. The scorching temperatures throughout the whole summertime, it had become longer and at a higher intensity. Also, the pressure of the pests and diseases, delayed frosts, and all kind of things, all kind of environmental things are changing the way that you, a farmer, you're implementing or you're doing what you're doing in your own farm. But the main topic here, or the main thing that we should talk about, is not necessarily the climate change, but the farmer's mindset. Because farmers, as the majority of you in this meeting know already, they are very, very, they are, even though they are highly resilient, they stick to their own job. So actually, it's very hard for them to change what they were doing in the past in order to adapt this type of practices, actually to become more agronomical and more economically resilient from the perspective of the climate change. I will tell you about several type of carbon sequestration agriculture practices. Actually, I have 3 of them. I will also let Mihai to develop more on these later on. The main 3 types of agriculture practices, of the carbon agriculture practices that farmers are currently implementing. The first one is the reduced or the no tillage. That farmers are plowing, yes? They are using the plow in order to get the soil, or to turn the soil over and to expose the bottom part of the soil to the sun. By doing this, of course, you're eliminating water. But since you're not having enough water, it's not a nice thing to do, a smart thing to do. This is why nowadays they are directly seeding on the soil into the stubble. Actually, so after harvesting the previous type of crop, they are directly seeding into that material without plowing the soil. This helps carbon stay in the soil, not eliminating it, and also helps in reducing cost, the operational cost, and also helps in preserving water. The second type of carbon agriculture practice is the cover crops. What you're doing, this type of crops, means that you're covering the soil with type of a green crop, okay, without necessarily harvesting it. The use for this, or the destination for this type of crop, is to get the soil covered in order to keep the moisture inside, and also the roots. Actually, they are replacing the plows, the roots of the plants. They are working the soil by their own. Okay. And the third main part is the agroforestry. Okay, so you're planting. Actually, you're using some plots of the land, planting trees in order to prevent erosion, in order to reintroduce all the fauna and all the animals and the insects over there, because it seems that all of them have a purpose. Okay. Now, when coming to the carbon voluntary market, yeah, I wrote here about the voluntary market. Actually, in the world, if we are talking about the carbon market, there are 2 types of markets. There is the compliance market, or the regulated one, and the voluntary market, the unregulated one. Let me explain you in a very, very few words how it works. So first, the farmers, of course, they are implementing this type of practices. Okay, they are capturing carbon. Okay. While doing this, they are already doing it. Nobody requires them to do so. They are already doing it because they want to diminish their operational costs, and they also want to become more resilient from the climate change perspective. There are some companies in the market, like the ones that are mentioned. Of course, not only these are the ones that are present in Romania. The companies that are monitoring what the farmers are doing. And while monitoring this, they say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Farmer, you can get access to more money. You can earn more money if you enter a carbon sequestration program. This means that farmers have to respect some specific types of works that they do, or that they are doing already. And for doing that, they can have access to a certain amount of money per year for implementing this. You can see that there are two types of companies in this domain. There are the insetters and the offsetters. The insetters are using these carbon credits in order to reduce their own carbon footprint, and the offsetters are the reseller ones. So there are companies on this market that actually monitor what the farmers are doing. They are creating these carbon credit systems. Of course, about this, I'm expecting Jan Peter to talk more about this, how the system works. And what they do in order to create this, they generate some sort of credits, okay, or carbon units, the verified carbon units. Here you can see two different type of companies like Vera or the Gold Standard that actually they are monitoring what the insetters and offsetters are doing, and they are the certifiers. They say, hey, these guys, what they are measuring in a correct way, respecting the certified way. This means that they, Vera or the Gold Standard or other companies, they are issuing these verified carbon units. What they do with them? They are providing them to companies that are also working in the financial sector, for instance. This is why I chose them, in order to reduce their own carbon footprint. Some of the companies that you guys are working for that are present right now in our meeting, for sure, some of you are working for some companies that are looking forward to reducing their own carbon footprint. How they are doing this? Turning off lights, switching to or turning towards, electric cars or something like this. But if you're putting this aside, you can acquire, you as a company, you can acquire or you can buy from these companies that were mentioned in this value chain. You can buy carbon credits in order to reduce your own footprint. Yeah. And now coming back to my last slide here. Now, if this works like this, okay, what's in it for us? So first, we are talking about a clean world, okay, a cleaner world. Second, we are talking about farmer-client resilience. Yes, farmers that are implementing this type of practices, for sure, they're becoming more resilient from the perspective of both income or of both their farm, let's say, economics and the agronomical point of view. Of course, the third point is the increased farm profitability and income. Why we are talking about profitability more and more nowadays? Because, for instance, let me come back to the example with the direct seeding, with the direct drilling. If you do less passes with your equipment, it means that you consume less fuel. This means that you're having less emissions, less greenhouse emissions, but less fuel means lower costs for you as a farmer. This means that you're increasing your margin in the farm. Also, we are talking about a reduced loaning risk. We see this more often, and this is, let's say, a hook for our discussion today. We have been implementing this in Romania for several of the financial institutions here, or also for some of the microfinance institutions too. Some type of let's say services where you, as a loaner, as the one that provides loan to the farmer, you can make sure that that farmer, from your perspective, is becoming less risky. Why? Because he can fight climate change in a better perspective. And the last point, which I consider it's also very important, is this higher orientation of impact funds towards these green investments. For sure, all of you know that. Maybe there are some green investment fund representatives here in our meeting today. For sure, there is this not necessary trend, but they are heading towards this segment. So more and more money are heading towards this type of investments, and this is also good for everybody. This was my whole presentation, guys. So I'm happy to share some more information after or while we are developing our meeting today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Laurentio. Please, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to use the chat function. There's also a possibility of raising your virtual hand, so we'll see it and we will give you voice if you prefer this way of asking a question. Laurentio, I just have a quick. Not a very complex question, but you mentioned that on one hand, farmers tend to apply the kind of old industrial sort of ways of cultivating soil, growing plants, and things like raising animals. But on the other hand, you say that they began those regenerative practices. So, isn't, just how are they incentivized in any way, or is it the kind of consciousness, or is it the whole system, just the regulation, the
Farm.
pressure, the opportunities of carbon markets? Other things that incentivize them actually to switch to, and that's maybe something that Mihai may also pick up on, but I would like to
Exactly,
first hear from
exactly.
you. Yeah.
Okay, let me answer to this question from two different perspectives. First,
Yeah.
while doing this, while heading towards carbon agriculture or sustainable agriculture
Uh-huh.
practices, farmers do not necessarily, not all of them, do not necessarily want to save the world. They don't want to save the planet.
Sure. Yeah.
What they truly want, they want to save themselves. So they are
That's
doing
for
this
sure. Yeah.
to keep continuing doing what they are doing.
Yeah.
Okay, this is
Yeah.
also sustainability because they create food. If they will continue to create food, this is good for us.
Yeah.
Second, from the other perspective, yes, the companies that I mentioned on all that, let's say, value chain, they are providing farmers access to money. Actually, I will tell you some, let's say, some roughly figures just to make an idea. Farmers can earn per 1 ton of sequestrated carbon in the soil, that is, of course, measured and evaluated. They can earn around 30 euros per hectare per year while implementing this. This is the type of money that we are talking about. So if we talk about 1,000 hectare farm in Romania, which is a mid to big sized farm in Romania, or 1,000,
Yeah.
for 1,000 you learn 30,000 euros per year just for implementing these practices. They don't do that because they are asked. They were doing it before, and the companies
Okay.
came to them and they say,
Okay.
okay, you're doing this, you can earn more money.
On the other hand, if you have a small farm, let's say 5, 10 hectares, does it make any financial,
We
just
see,
is it an incentive for a
yes,
small farm?
we see a great increase also in this area because maybe some of the participants in the meeting they're asking, okay, but these aren't our customers. The big farms
Okay.
aren't our customers. Maybe our customers are the small ones.
Okay.
We expect and we see this. There is a trend in for these companies to look for smaller companies too because the market is over there. Yeah, actually, I was talking about these companies, but we see an increasing number of the companies that are present in the let's say, in the input resellers companies like Cargill, ADM, or the traders, yeah, the general traders that are implementing their own programs. Why? Because customers like ourselves, the general population, wants to have access to a cleaner food, first of all, and due to this, there is a market. And for this market to continue to exist, they need this traceability, and this is why we see a lot of the traders that are heading into this direction. So we're expecting the number of these smaller type of farmers to go in this direction too.
Super. No, that's good news then. So Mihai, so what was your inspiration? What made you transition to regenerative farming? Can you maybe describe your journey? What was the biggest change or challenge that you had to implement? Um, any, just details about that would be great if you could share.
Okay, so good
By the
evening.
way, you manage a big farm, right? So how big is it actually? Could you maybe could you
Okay.
also let us know?
Of course, of course. Good evening, everybody. My name is Mihai Cremeneanu. I'm an agronomist, and together with my family, we are farming about 950 hectares in the southern part of Romania, in a region of Oltenia.
Impressive.
To take you through the journey of our farm and how we managed to get where we are today. Everything started almost 15 years ago when my family saw that the agriculture is changing fast, is changing faster than the climate change. The first thing we saw was that we couldn't use our plows anymore. The soil was so compacted that during the summer when we wanted to plow the land, we were working in concrete. So
So there was a resistance from the soil itself that made
even
you
the soil,
rethink. Yeah,
as
the
my father
soil
used
was
to say,
rejecting to
the soil
do.
is talking
Yeah,
to you,
yeah.
and you have to respect what the soil
He's obeying. Right.
is telling you.
Amazing.
The transition started slowly because back then there were not a lot of information online and
Sure.
in the universities around Romania. But the main thing that we started doing is tilling less and less the soil, as Laurențiu mentioned. The first thing is reducing the tilling to hopefully doing no tilling of the soil.
So you don't do any tilling now, right now?
Right now, we are doing minimum tillage
Minimum.
on almost 50% of the farm and no tilling on the other 50% of the farm.
There you
But
go.
this comes with a great cost, and the transition is not very easy because starting from conventional agriculture, where you are used to pass the field maybe 4 or 5 or 6 times with a tractor by plowing, by tilling the land after the plow. When you start doing minimum tillage, the first few years you will see a decrease of production. This
Of
can,
course, yeah.
yes, this can scare many farmers because we are used, or we were used in Romania and maybe in Europe, to talk about big production per hectare. But the transition after a few years will even the things out. You will see that the production is even, but the profit is growing more and more because you are reducing fuel costs, you are reducing usage of the machinery, and so you will become more profitable by doing less and working the land
Okay.
less.
So you reduce your costs at the same time.
Okay, of course. Our focus back then was being able to produce anything. But after a few years, we changed our focus, and our goal now is to be able to farm the same land that we are doing now, even 20 years from now. This would be impossible if we would do a conventional agriculture every single year. Another thing of this transition, as mentioned before, is the great cost of new machinery. So farmers need to be careful, need to not expose themselves to big loans, and opt for everything that is in the market. For now, it was optimal to get European funds in order to buy new machinery. After the funds for no-tilling machinery, we also got funds to do irrigation on over 500 hectares of farm. And so no-tilling is becoming even more attractive and profitable by irrigating the soil. Another thing that was mentioned by Laurențiu earlier is planting small forests along the edges of your fields. Back maybe 40 years ago, Romania had a program of agroforestry in the southern part of the country, where the desertification of the land is very, very much increasing year by year. But because of the change of regime 35 years ago, these things stopped. We as individuals we are obliged to do this for ourselves. We need to plant forests. We need to protect our fields as much as we can. So starting from the problem of the land and learning each year about minimum or no-tilling or regenerative agriculture, we found ourselves a few years ago approached by a company who told us about carbon credits. We started researching ourselves. After that, we were very keen on joining them in this assessment program and to see how much carbon we sequestrated in our soil during these 15 years of good practices, as we call them. And we were able to become the first Romanian farm who was credited for the carbon sequestration. And after that, we were even able to sell our credit scores to a third party, a financial institution in Romania, who wanted to decrease their carbon footprint by joining this kind of program.
Excellent.
Yes. We still have carbon credits from the foundation, but as this market is not very well regulated on European standards, there is less interest on the market.
Okay.
And,
yeah. Go ahead.
Talking about what Laurențiu presented us earlier, also cover crops mean a lot to reducing the carbon footprint and to sequestrating carbon in the field. But also, for example, choosing your crops so that the crops that you put as cover crops have roots that will leave nitrogen in the soil, and you will reduce the application of nitrogen from
fertilizers.
Yeah, from fertilizers.
Super.
All these grouped together can help farmers become profitable with maybe less productions, but with better productions.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's super. And Mihai, I wanted to ask, because you mentioned the EU subsidy, obviously available to bigger farms, but do you see any need for additional finance, or, despite the EU subsidy, because we're here, it's a social finance, microfinance conference, and we also would like to work out the role that microfinance can have in helping probably smaller farmers. Actually, some of BCR Social Finance or Partia Credit, they work with farmers. So, how can they, just what would their role be in financing what, just if there is EU subsidy, just what else is there a role for them?
Of course,
Just some of the upfront costs, some seeds, just some cash flow issues, just where do you see the role of microfinancing but in the context of switching to regenerative practices in agriculture?
Especially in this context where the transition is extremely expensive, farmers need to be able to have options for
Okay.
financing besides the US subsidies. That unfortunately we see that the trend is to
Reduce, yeah.
to the common agriculture policy, which will be changing.
Yeah.
That will reduce the subsidies for farms.
Okay.
Farmers, especially smaller farmers or medium-sized farmers, because when I think about smaller farmers, I hope to see them grouped as medium farmers in the future, because so they will be able to get more finance for their transition.
Yeah.
Staying in 10 or 20 farmers which farm between 5 and 10 hectares in the same village is not efficient for the future. If they work together, they would be able to get more finance. But after this, we of course need companies, need financial institution, microfinance institutions that understand that farming is not especially profitable every year, but on the long term, they need to understand that farmers can pay back and can create great value for population and even for the microfinance institutions that credit the farmers.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Good. Great. So thank you, Mihai. Thank you so much for your for that perspective. And let's bring in the science now. So, Jan Peter, we had about how the system works, some of the risks that farmers are facing, problems, issues, but also gains that they can have. But so let's talk a little bit about the technical aspects of the whole system. How can we make it reliable? Can you maybe explain the challenge of measuring, reporting, verification, and tell us a few words about the CAFAMOR project that's making all of this cheaper and more reliable.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for this invitation to speak at this meeting. I hope you see my screen, the presentation well.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So I want to talk a little bit about how to scale up carbon farming, because I think that's now the main challenge. And I do that on basis on the EU project. We have an Horizon project called CAFAMOR, which recently started and which is really addressing these topics. And I'm coordinating this project. But I want to start first a bit with the policy side, because as we heard from Laurencio on how this works with the carbon farming market and how credits can be earned. but we also saw there are many companies already active, but we also saw there's no regulation yet from the EU, and it's a bit of a kind of Wild West, where many can start, but there's no overall quality control. So the EU started to recognize, if they want to account for carbon removals in their policies, that there should be a kind of harmonization required and quality improvement. So they started to work on the CRCF, so it's the carbon removals and carbon farming framework for certification. And this regulation was adopted last year formally, and it aims to develop carbon farming certification methodologies. And it also includes the rules for the certification process. And at the end, there should also be a central registry for to where these certificates should be mentioned, and so there is also no double counting, so that farmers cannot sell to both companies the same kind of units. So altogether, this should bring trust into the carbon farming market, which is now voluntary, and there's a kind of lack of trust. So the methodologies to ensure that these are have a good quality, they have so-called quality criteria. So the methodologies address on how the quantification should be done, how to ensure that the activities are additional, also rules about liability, and new to this is also that there should be kind of minimum sustainability criteria. So it's going already a bit beyond carbon, but it can be, there's a demand for more, but at least it's addressed.
Excuse me, Jan-Peter, if you are shifting the slides, because we're still on your first slide, so I'm not sure whether it's intentional or
I'm not. I was still at the first slide. Or you
okay,
see only
very
the
good,
main
very
slide.
good. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Now I go. So under the CRCF, there are different types of carbon removals can be certified. So for carbon farming, it's about planting of trees, afforestation, soil management and agroforestry, rebetting of peatlands, but there is also others related to carbon storage in buildings and permanent removals. And the carbon farming ones are really seen as temporary removals, whereas the permanent removals are really related to geological storage. So for this presentation, we really focus on, we are talking about the ones in soil and agroforestry and biomass as well. So we see there are quite some challenges currently. So there's limited uptake of the carbon farming because of the prices are often too low for farmers to be interested. There's a lack of administrative burden. Farmers have to provide quite a lot of data to ensure to show what they do, and to there's also uncertainties in the quantification, and there's a lack of trust in the carbon farming market, as I said. And one of the main things is that farmers, as said, they have to, if they want to be active in a voluntary carbon market, the same kind of data is also required for the Scope 3 reporting that Laurencio explained, for cap payments maybe. So there's a lot of data that has to be provided, which should be streamlined. But there are opportunities. So the European Commission with the CRCF regulation and the certification should aim to bring trust again. The national greenhouse gas inventories, they also want to have these kind of data. So there's an interest by member states. And we see there's a lot of new technologies coming, for example, from Earth observation, that can improve and reduce the cost of the monitoring.
And who does actually the monitoring? Who does that?
Yes, so the monitoring should be done by the certification scheme. So the projects have to arrange this, and this should be done arranged by the certification schemes. So like companies like Agrina is doing that.
Yeah. So they have to be licensed for that, for the whole certification process.
Yes, so currently you see there's the main one global is SIFTA, is a company that then allows carbon farming schemes they have to be recognized by them. So they have to make a plan, and that should be approved. But the idea is now that the Commission, at least for European projects, that they will do the recognition, so companies can come up with their with certification schemes. And if they are recognized, they are showing that, okay, this scheme has the quality that complies with the criteria from the CRCF methodologies.
Okay, thanks.
So in our KVMO project, we aim to develop a system that will be allow for quantification of and the monitoring of at parcel level for all farms in Europe. We will create a quantification platform and also the setup of the registry to support the Commission on this, and a marketplace. So the idea is that this project, at the end, we should increase the attractiveness of carbon farming, reduce the administrative burden for the farmers, and allow for multiple uses. Like I said, that scope 3 reporting and voluntary carbon markets are single systems. So in the project, we really focus on agricultural soils and agroforestry, not on the other land uses. And it's a 4-year project that started last July. And you see the partners, so Laurencio is also involved via ADER in this project.
Yeah.
So maybe a bit more on how this works normally. If you are a farmer and you want to comply with a carbon farming project, you start with selecting the fields that you want to participate in. It can be a single farmer, but most often it's a group of farmers that's also allowed, and that will also for smaller farmers make it feasible to participate in these kind of projects. So selecting your parcel, well, we aim to get this from the LPIS information, so it's the land parcel information systems, to get automatically the history of what has been grown on these parcels, so we have that information, which should enter in a quantification module. So there are mainly 2 options for quantification of the removals. Either you do measurements in the soil, so you take a soil sample at the start of the project and at the end of the project, and you quantify the difference. But that's often quite costly, and it takes some more time because the changes in soil carbon are quite slow and small. So more often, these projects are based on modeling the changes. So you have a quantification model that quantifies this. So that we will build using Earth observation data, and where possible, connect to farm management information systems, so the data is automatically collected. Of course, there is still a need for soil data, a minimum data to verify, and climate data to quantify. So when this has been quantified, it goes through the certification process where there are additional checks, whether your practices are additional, there's uncertainty, deduction, etc. And then, if approved, the certificates are stored in the registry.
Jan-Peter, I'm a little bit worried that maybe you are now shifting the slides and we're still...
Oh, you're still not seeing things? Oh.
Yeah, we're still on the first one.
Oh, okay, then now you...
Yes, now we
Oh,
can
I'm very
see
sorry you didn't see this.
Yeah.
Because
Now
have
it's the 6th one, yeah.
Okay,
Do you want to very quickly kind of...
Yeah, I think we can
okay.
share the presentation
Yeah, we'll share the
afterwards.
presentation. Now we're on the 2nd, yeah.
Yeah, so very sorry that you
Sure.
missed
No problem.
this slides. Somehow it's shared the wrong screen and not my full screen mode, which was on another
Now it's working
monitor.
well, yeah.
Yeah. So just to very quickly go through what you saw.
Maybe there was one on challenges, number 4, I think, and opportunities.
Yeah.
Maybe
so I in principle I've said everything. So
yeah. Okay, very good. Okay.
So this was the scheme where I talked through how the process works. So finally, so once we have the certification process has been done, so the EU wants to create an EU market, which would be the market would be consisting of 3 demands. So either from the value chain for scope 3 reporting, but there can be, the Commission is also thinking on stimulating public-private purchase programs, which is especially for the ones like if you do afforestation or rewetting of peatlands, which are more public goods, to support that. But there might also be demand outside the value chain, so from companies who want really in the voluntary market, not directly related to agriculture, but still want to buy these kind of certificates. And the farmers and foresters can. It's currently only a voluntary system, but this part on the market is still further to be developed and rules to be come up, which have to be linked to the post 2030 climate policies. So there's still a lot of development. And this is also one of the aspects we are addressing in our project, how the carbon farming economics work, what are the market opportunities, what is the current market, what are buyers already active, what is the potential demand for these kind of carbon farming credits, what can be supplied. So this market part we will address in the project. And I think the role of microfinance is here also to support the farmers in the transition, because the whole certification process is done ex post. So you first have to apply the activities, and after, like say 5 years, they take okay, so much carbon you have sequestered, and this is the amount of certificates that can be validated and sold. But it means you need upfront investment for the farmers to participate, and I think here there can be a good role for microfinance in doing the upfront financing of the cost for the farmers.
Okay.
So I think that was my last slide. If you want to know more on the project, you can see this information or contact me. And sorry for not showing well the slides, but happy to share them later.
Sure. No problem. So, except for financing, do you see any other role for microfinance? Maybe could I also have any role in the certification part? Just or is it totally out of scope? Just of the activities. They should remain. They should stay on the financing side.
Well, I think, as I said, that there is a need for upfront
investment,
and probably it's easiest to do that together with the companies that develop these kind of carbon farming projects.
Okay.
Whether they are the certification itself, there is independent auditors who do this, but the setting up of projects, there for sure can be a stimulating role from these kind of microfinancing companies as well, if they.
Okay. And how do you see the future of this carbon credit market? Once all of those pieces of the puzzle are in place, just it's gonna take off. And what's gonna happen to the small ones? We sort of identify them as not profiting maybe that much on the system. Would they be willing to sign up? Mihai is quite optimistic, but I don't know. Yeah, what do you think? And maybe to you too, if you could maybe say a few words about that.
I think now with the CRCF and the methodologies, the methodologies will be published early next year. So then the projects really can start working, and the registry should be ready by 2028. So I think then that part is more or less ready and can provide trust. But of course, the demand side has still to be a lot more developed, and there is still a lot of uncertainty. What is allowed? What can you claim? And there we need still rules. If it's only just the voluntary carbon market, then I'm not sure how big this will become. If it's and that's how the Commission is looking at. Also, will be obligations. So for the food companies to reduce their emissions in the supply chain, and that they have to make use of these certificates. Then of course there is a demand that it's obligated, and then this can take off a lot faster.
Yeah, super. Laurentiu or Mihai, any thoughts?
Just to comment a little bit on what Jan Peter said before, and also on what Mihai said. I think you can call it some sort of a safety net, because for microfinance institutions, at least in Romania, some of them are already being active in the whole agribusiness distribution providing solutions. Yes, we're having some players that are also attending the Social Vibe event, and they are playing as distributors. If you turn your customers, your farmers, into becoming more climate resilient, into adopting the carbon agriculture practices, it means that you, as a distributor, you're making sure in a higher percentage that you're going to recover the money back from the customers that you've loaned that money to, yeah, no matter how the climate develops. So actually you're helping yourself, not only the farmers, but you're also making sure that you're going to get your loans back, to get your money back. So this is why they are present over there. They can stay, like, let's say, in a more safe environment.
Okay, super. Mihai, any thoughts?
Yeah, exactly. From the perspective of business only,
Yeah.
it's good to have something else that you can rely on, something else that can give you incentive year by year.
Yeah.
And also from the perspective as a farmer who is passionate about soil health, having these institutions providing a solution for farmers to change to a more sustainable agriculture is something that we all should be interested in, because after all, in the end of the day, farmers need to put food on the table for the next 1,000 years. So we should create mechanisms to push them to do carbon farming, to do agriculture, sustainable agriculture, because it's in the interest of all of us. Leaving money aside, leaving business aside, having a healthy soil is good for everybody at the end of the day.
And that's an excellent point, a wonderful point. Thank you for this, Mihai. And my last question, I don't see any questions from the audience. So my last kind of a more general question would be about, because this system that you described, it focuses heavily on CO2 sequestration, capturing it. But we know that those regenerative practices also generate other benefits, just they improve biodiversity, water quality, other things. So I just wondered if do these other things offer also sufficient and maybe quantifiable value that we maybe should start thinking about packaging them and maybe even paying for them alongside carbon credits, or would it be a little bit too much? What do you think, guys, one by one?
Yeah. If I
Jan,
can start,
yeah.
so in
Sure.
the European methodologies, so there is, in the sustainability part, you have minimum sustainability requirements. So you should not do no significant harm in have a to worsen the situation, but on environment. But there is also room for co-benefits, and the idea is that you can even claim and indeed get more value to your type of carbon certificate if you prove that you have co-benefits for example, biodiversity. However, at this point, there are not yet accepted European-wide approach and methodologies to quantify these. For example, for biodiversity, it's still very difficult. But the Commission also announced that they will start working on kind of nature credits, so that should at the end be merged. So for sure, the idea is to reward and get more value for practices that have also co-benefits on other aspects beyond climate.
That's excellent, and maybe this will truly contribute to the global transformation of agriculture. Laurentiu, your final thoughts in
I would
reference
say
to
that
this?
if we are talking about sustainability in general, we should keep in mind the fact that apart from the environment, as already Jan Peter said about the biodiversity and everything that we are having, for sure there is this the economical foundation that we talked about today, the reducing costs, increasing profitability, or at least maintaining profitability, no matter where the climate is going. And also the other important thing that Mihai stressed, he already put that on the table, having enough food, sufficient food for everybody on the planet, from a healthier perspective. Yeah. So a better food, a healthier food for everybody. This means sustainability. So it's not enough just to save the planet. It's not enough just to create more profitable farmers if we don't manage to create enough food for the population.
Exactly. Excellent. Mihai, any last words?
I think everything was said by everybody, and on the subject of biodiversity, the farmers that are doing sustainable agriculture are for sure seeing an increase increasing biodiversity in and near their farms. We see it, and we tend to be happy about having this kind of biodiversity in our farm. We get help from nature if we sustain the nature.
Yeah, we are happy, and you are happy, and we are happy too.
Exactly.
So this brings us to the end of this very insightful session. And the key takeaway is quite clear. The carbon market provides a new revenue opportunity, and microfinance can actually be one of the catalysts, I would say, needed to unlock this opportunity, especially for the small farmer, and especially when powered by certain scientific integrity that was explained by Jan Peter. So my deepest thanks to our panelists, to Laurent, you, Mihai, and Jan Peter. And thank you to all of the audience, to all of the participants. Thank you for joining us. If you want to follow up with any of our speakers, please let me know. We will connect them with you. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.